I think the biggest time in my parents' stress in my parents' relationship with my parents was when I was at university, and they were harping at me all the time. Get a job. Try and find a job. Network. You need to network. You need to find the right people to get a job. You need to go to these like careers fairs. And every time I went to a careers fair at Warwick University, it's the most uninspiring place in the world. Like for a university who's so funded, invested in the arts. I mean, I don't know what it's like now. This is back in 2007, but a company well, it is a company. The university is so invested in the arts. It is full of corporates when they go to for the investment careers fairs. I went to all of them because someone or the other would go to them, and I would come with them. And they were always big companies. Your big Argos and Woolworths and all those companies.
Not very inspiring. Maybe.
Not very inspiring. I mean, if you want to be in business, it's very inspiring. If you're coming from the Warwick Business School, great, there's loads of opportunities. But I didn't see anything. The only somewhat related artistic thing I saw was Penguin Books came. But again, you're on their publishing and corporate side rather than... I don't actually know what they're... I mean, unless you want to be a writer, I guess. What else would you do at Penguin? But none of those sorts of... The companies that have really inspired me have been some ones that I found further along in my life, and I found myself. Yeah.
What were those?
So I worked theatre companies. It starts with theatre companies and poetry companies, and I say poetry companies. I mean, I briefly worked for a company called Read Together, which basically you teach people in a local community, Hackney Council fund classes for people who might be interested in learning and reading poetry out loud. And it gives people who participate an ability to learn how to speak aloud with confidence, but also understand that poetry doesn't have to be this elitist, faraway thing, that poetry can be accessible to everyone. And these are the tools to make you understand how easy actually poetry can be to access for you personally. So that was a really nice company to work for. And Carly Theatre is a company I've worked for on a casual basis, and I absolutely love it because it's a nice small company. We're all creatives. We're making all working together to make great theatre, and obviously promoting South Asian women writers, South Asian work, and then obviously the knock-on effect from that, you meet other people who are also interested in those sort of issues, like a play that I did called 12 with Carly Theatre. Then they involved, I think they're called Southall Black Sisters, which are a charity. And you just kind of interact with these other people and then in other companies, and that's what spoke to me more than some of the stuff that came to Warwick University. But then, at the same time, young and impressionable, I kind of got sucked into it a bit. I had loads of friends who did economics, and all over the summer ended up applying to these corporate investment banks. And I thought, well, why don't I do it? Because then they were like, yeah, you can make £800 a week. And obviously I didn't give one toss about what the work was, but I was like, £800 a week, I could do with that money. And it kind of became, obviously I didn't get into these banks because they saw through my application, this art student's trying to get into a bank, whatever. Which is probably for the best in the end. But I kind of went through a period of, I don't know what I want, because I kind of decided in university that maybe acting is not for me. And actually part of this reason, if I'm totally honest, is... Yeah, so I was always a little voice in the back of my head. Where is there space for me in this industry, right? You watch TV and you watch theatre. Now I'm involved in theatre, so I see a lot more opportunities around me. But as a lay person, a person who doesn't actually maybe see the whole roster of what there is out there, and you see maybe the mainstream stuff, there's not really very many Indians or Asians, especially not in the 90s and early noughties when I was young. And so part of me was like, is there space for me in this world? Will they accept me? And then part of the reason I fell out of love, one of the first things was that I felt I was the only I was the only Asian in my course, in my English and theatre. There was one, I think, East Asian girl. I mean, Warwick is a very multicultural and multicoloured, I suppose, university, but the clique that formed in my specific English and theatre course was very much somewhere I felt unwelcome, whether that was inside my own head or whether that was genuinely a clique that they formed, is to be, I guess, to be debated. But at the end of the day, I felt like I wasn't welcome. And then I did a couple of shows where, again, I felt like these people didn't feel welcome, didn't like me or whatever. So and then the films I did end up making, like I said, were like the banker types, or not, they weren't bankers at the time, but people doing economics or people doing other things. So yeah, you kind of you don't realize. I never really thought of my race or my identity as my Indian identity as something that impacted my life, because my parents never ever said to me in my life that the reason you can't do this is because of the fact that you're Indian. Even when we went to Switzerland, even though I saw it, I never allowed myself to be like, they're not letting me do this because I'm Asian, or they. And then it slowly seeps in as you get older, and you're like, when you become a little bit more reflective and when you allow yourself to think about it. But at the same time, it's a dangerous thing because you don't want it to become an excuse for everything and become bitter about it either. And when I get very vehement about my opinions on certain like equality-based things, it really does annoy me. Yeah, kind of lost my train of thought with that. The idea, and you mentioned it briefly, the idea of having someone who believes in you and then is willing to nurture that is almost everything, the difference between making it and breaking it, especially in the art world where there is a high level of unemployment. That and art is such a subjective thing that you need to have some 100% self-belief, and that self-doubt can be debilitating. But as a young person, you know, starting out in the world where you have the highest level of self-doubt, possibly, you need the most level of nurturing and mentor. And I never had that. And the thing is, my parents also kind of needed a mentor, because they've come from, my mum's a pharmacist by trade and my dad's an accountant. So both have absolutely no idea of the art world and what to expect. So they needed somebody to mentor them for what to do for their child. So I don't actually blame my parents at all. They did what they could, and they were at least fair to me. You know, they listened to what I wanted and tried to do the best. But where I get angry is where the system had an opportunity to step in and be a mentor. It didn't. For example, from my careers advisor, which, as you had the same problem, they took one look and said, no, she can't possibly be an actress, or no, make her an accountant, and push her into doing mathematics or economics in university. That's my, white European person telling my parents what to do, and at least my parents actually resisted her and did not listen to her to a certain extent. And then when I got out into university, again, there was no one there that I could really connect to. And then I went to the working world, and I realized I knew it was missing. But I couldn't put my finger on what it was quite then, until I got a measure of a mentor. So when I started Kali Theatre, like, there were just these people around me, artistic people, who I'd worked with in an acting capacity and a non-acting capacity, and they just, they're not telling me I'm the best actor in the world, but they just had a belief in me that, of course you can do it. And this sense of belief from somebody who's been in the industry goes a long, long way. A long, long way. Because the self-belief thing is just, it's like gold dust, Because if you don't believe in yourself, you realise the decision-making processes in your world are hindered. You start making bad choices. But if you're not hindered by self-doubt, all your choices are there to get you to where you want to be. And I wonder sometimes if that has to do with my understanding of who I am. And also, mentors come from a mentor's perspective. You look at someone as and want to nurture them because you see maybe a part of yourself in them. So if all these mentors are sort of people who don't see you or don't feel like they connect to you, then you get left behind as a result. So actually you need people like you up above to help you bring you up. And it's I guess, this vicious cycle. And I think colour does play a lot into it, because it's funny that, interestingly enough, the people who first believed in me were the other Asian actors and the other Asian directors. Even in drama school, this happened to me, because we have this thing, and I know I was a good actor. I wasn't the worst actor in the class, and at least I had that self-doubt. You know, some actors can be like, I'm so shit. I know I'm a good actor, and we have drama school, and at the end of drama school we have our showcase, which goes up, and all the industry people show you. But the teacher had decided and has this policy that you don't choose your own scenes for yourself. Your classmates have to now go research, and you go choose scenes for others. It stops people from, I guess, I don't know what the point of the exercise was actually in hindsight, but what happens is that if people like yourself, I was only Asian in the class. And then we gave it 2 weeks to prepare for showing scenes, and be like, okay, Sally and Mark for this scene. And all these friends of mine had gone and found scenes, and no one had found scenes for me, because they had already in their head not been colourblind in their casting, right? Because if you look at all the plays in this country, unless you specifically go to the Asian section, why would a white audience growing up in a white world really have a particular knowledge of Asian plays? And I kind of dropped the ball, because I was in the mode of, I'm going to listen to what my teacher was, and in hindsight I should have been like, no, I shouldn't trust the teacher knows what she's doing with me, because she didn't, and I got left behind. And then we ended up having a last minute scramble for a play for me. And it was horrible. The showcase was horrible, and luckily I already had an agent, but I didn't get a new agent from it, and I wasn't confident or happy with that piece. And part of it's like, you had no idea how to deal with somebody of my look and identity, and you have no idea how to cast me. And that is entrenched in drama schools. Funnily enough, ES 15, where I went, I read an article, is ahead of the curve in terms of getting Asians or non-white people into the school, but that doesn't, getting them into the school as part of it's a 3-dimensional thing that you have to work on. You can't just bring them in and then churn them out. You have to understand actually acting is all about identity, and understanding your own identity is key to being able to perform on stage. Interesting enough, you should speak to somebody who did a MPhil in all about cultural identity and acting. Her name's Christine Landon Smith. I would definitely contact her if you say I told you about her.
I will, thank you.
Because we did a course with her for about a week's course on, it's called Intercultural Acting. Intra meaning obviously within your own culture rather than between other cultures, and you explore your own culture, your own cultural identity and heritage of who you are, and bring that to the stage. And she said that she finds that in drama schools that's often either it's suppressed or default understood to be the authority culture. So the default here would be British. So when you're doing Shakespeare, you do Shakespeare in a certain way, but you don't understand that actually what you're making everyone do is the authority culture, which is okay for your average white bloke who's doing Shakespeare, but it's not okay for your female Asian. And whether or not I consider myself British, and actually I find it, and as a result I find it a lot easier. But then you have these international students, or you have someone who may have grown up in a much more Indian environment, you know? Like, you can tell by the way I speak that obviously I went to a certain type of school, and I speak a certain way, and I feel British in maybe a different way than another British Asians, because the British Asian is so many things, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, she was really, really eye-opening in how of the importance of cultural identity in the world of acting, and being a good actor and being a truthful actor. You know, that's interesting you say that, because there's a whole vicious cycle that happens in that sense, right? So if you've got creating art where you're saying, say that you're a white male cisgender heterosexual person is always, so they watch it and they see themselves, they watch it and they've grown up seeing that. The people who are not that may actually turn to other forms of whatever to find their connection and whatever. So then when you do start making stuff that reflects them, you haven't even got the audience there, because your core paying audience is the white male, you know, so you have standard authority person. and you then have to coax all those lapsed viewers back into, and then sort of re-educate them into, not educate them, but just re-inspire them into seeing that this mode of art can be for you, right? Like, you know, a superhero film that's about an Indian woman, you know, like that kind of thing. Or because I don't watch superhero films. It was fun when I was a kid, and one of my best friends, a guy I've known since first day of university, and he's, you know, white male cisgender guy, and he absolutely loves superhero films, and he doesn't get bored of them. And I know it's because, whether he'll admit it or not, he sees himself in them.
Yes.
He likes being that tough guy. He likes working out. He likes the display of like bravado and all that stuff on screen, and he connects with it on a deeper level than just wham bam action, right? So, what am I trying to say? So then obviously all these millions being made by the superhero films are paid for by that membership of people who want to watch it. So then when you decide to bring out a female Ghostbusters and it flops, it's not because it's a bad film, it's because those women that you're trying to appeal to don't watch these films as a rule of thumb because they're not interested in that, and they don't necessarily know why they're not interested in it. Right?
Yeah.
Because I actually gave the Ghostbusters film a go and absolutely loved it. I mean, loved it. And I thought, I really just 100%, 360 degrees effusively love that film, because I saw myself so many times in those women, and I laughed, and there was a kind of comedy that you really connect to on a deeper level. And you think, if more women watched it, they would have loved it. It's just that it flopped because women have already switched off. They don't find their entertainment from going to the cinema to watch a superhero film. How do we change that?